Mosquitoes are not just biting you, they are reading you. Your breath, your heat, your sweat, your skin chemistry, your movement in the dark. Every time you exhale, you release a signal. Every time your body gives off warmth, you create a target. Every chemical on your skin, every trace of odor, every invisible clue rising from your body can become part of a tracking system. And somewhere in the darkness, a female mosquito begins to decode it. Most people think mosquitoes bite because they are hungry. But that is only the cover story, because mosquitoes do not live on blood alone. Many mosquitoes feed on plant sugars for energy. The blood meal is something deeper. For many female mosquitoes, blood is not just food. Blood is a reproductive trigger, a biological resource used to develop eggs. That means the bite is not random irritation. It is part of a survival cycle, a hidden system connecting water, eggs, larvae, flight, human breath, skin chemistry, and blood. This is the mosquito matrix, a living detection network built by evolution. First, she may sense carbon dioxide from your breath, then body odor, then heat, then moisture, then visual contrast, then the chemical signature of your skin. By the time you feel the bite, the real operation has already happened. You were detected, tracked, approached, landed on, pierced, and entered by a microscopic feeding system so precise that it can touch your blood before your body fully understands what happened. But the mosquito is more than an annoying insect. It is one of nature's most successful biological networks, born in still water, guided by invisible signals, driven by reproduction, and connected to some of the most powerful disease systems on Earth. So tonight, we are not just looking at a mosquito bite. We are opening the file on one of nature's most disturbing hunting systems, a creature so small that humans barely notice it, but so effective that it changed history. This is not just a bug. This is a blood-seeking algorithm, written by evolution. This is the mosquito matrix. So today, we are not just looking at an insect. We are opening the file on one of nature's most advanced tracking systems, a creature most people dismiss as small, weak, and annoying. But beneath that tiny body is a survival machine built with precision, a machine that can locate you in darkness, read the air around you, follow the invisible trail of your breath, measure your warmth, detect the chemistry on your skin, and land before you even know it is there. To understand mosquitoes, we have to go deeper than the bite, deeper than the itch, deeper than the sound near your ear at night. Because what feels like a random attack is actually the final stage of a biological system shaped by evolution. The mosquito does not simply find humans. It calculates them through signals. And the blood it takes is not just food. It is part of reproduction, part of survival, part of a hidden cycle that begins in water and ends on skin. So before we enter the full hunting system, we must understand the real reason blood matters. Not hunger, not aggression, not hatred, but reproduction. To understand mosquitoes, we have to begin by destroying the biggest misunderstanding about them. Mosquitoes are not hunting human blood because they are starving in the way most people imagine. They are not tiny vampires searching for dinner. They are not biting because blood is their normal daily food. The real system is deeper, more biological, more precise, and far more disturbing. For many mosquitoes, blood is not the main source of energy. Energy often comes from plant sugars, nectar, plant juices, sweet natural fluids. Both male and female mosquitoes can use sugar sources to fuel flight, movement, and survival. This is the part most people never hear. The mosquito is not born as a blood machine only. It is part of a larger ecological system. It can visit plants. It can feed on sugars. It can move through the environment as a small flying insect connected to flowers, water, humidity, and climate. But then comes the female. And with the female mosquito, the entire story changes. Because in many mosquito species, the female needs blood for reproduction. Not because blood is simply a meal, but because blood carries concentrated nutrients, proteins, lipids, amino acids, biological building materials, and those materials are used to develop eggs. This is the real reason the mosquito bite exists, not hatred, not random aggression, not simple hunger. Reproduction. The bite is not the beginning of the story. It is the middle of a cycle that begins in water, moves into the air, finds a host, takes blood, creates eggs, and returns life back to water again. That is the blood reproduction code, a hidden biological program. A system where one tiny insect connects human skin to the next generation of mosquitoes. When a female mosquito lands on a host, she is not acting like a monster. She is acting like an organism carrying an ancient instruction. Find blood, extract nutrients, digest the meal, convert the proteins into reproductive material, produce eggs, lay them in the right environment, restart the system. This is why mosquitoes are so successful. Their bite is not isolated behavior. It is linked to a complete life cycle. And to understand that cycle, we have to go back before the bite, back before the buzzing sound, back before the insect ever touched the skin. We have to go back to water. Because for mosquitoes, water is not just a background detail. Water is the nursery, the launch site, the hidden factory. Mosquitoes pass through 4 major life stages: egg, larva, pupa, adult. The adult is the stage humans notice, the flying insect, the sound near the ear, the bite on the skin. But the first 3 stages are connected to water: standing water, still water, tiny pools, containers, tree holes, marshes, flooded ground, even small human-made spaces where water collects. To humans, a small container of water may look harmless. To a mosquito, it can be the beginning of a population. This is one of the most important truths about mosquitoes. They do not need a dramatic landscape to begin. They do not need a river system. They do not need a lake. Some species can use small pockets of water close to human environments: a forgotten container, a tire, a gutter, a plant saucer, a shaded puddle. A tiny stable pool where larvae can survive. This makes mosquitoes extremely difficult to ignore because their reproductive system can attach itself to the edges of human life. The places we overlook can become the places they multiply. The female lays eggs depending on the species. Some mosquitoes lay eggs directly on water. Some lay eggs near water where flooding will later trigger hatching. Some produce egg rafts floating at the surface. Some place eggs in containers or natural cavities. But the logic is the same. The next generation must reach water because mosquito larvae are aquatic. They hatch into water. They move through water. They feed in water. They grow in water. They breathe at or near the surface. And they prepare for transformation. The larval stage is strange when you look closely. It does not look like the adult mosquito. There are no wings, no flying body, no piercing mouthparts searching for blood. Instead, mosquito larvae live like small aquatic organisms. They feed, they molt, they grow. They respond to light, movement, disturbance, and water conditions. They are part of the hidden water world. Then comes the pupa. The pupa does not feed. It is a transformation stage, a sealed transition, a living comma-shaped form suspended in water, waiting for the adult body to emerge. And then, at the surface, the adult mosquito breaks free. A new flying insect rises from water into air. This is one of the most cinematic parts of mosquito biology. A creature that begins as aquatic life becomes an aerial hunter. A body born in still water becomes a flying detection machine. And if that adult is female, and if her species requires blood for egg development, then the next stage of the code begins. She must find a host. But before Chapter 2 reveals how she tracks humans, we must understand why the blood matters so much. Blood is not taken casually. A blood meal is dangerous. For a female mosquito, landing on a host is one of the riskiest things she can do. Think about the size difference. A mosquito is tiny. The host is enormous. A human hand can kill her instantly. A tail from an animal can crush her. A movement of skin, muscle, or hair can end the mission. Every landing carries risk. Every feeding attempt can become death. So why take that risk? Because reproduction is powerful enough to force the strategy. The female is not looking for comfort. She is completing a biological requirement. In many species, the nutrients from blood help her ovaries develop eggs. After feeding, the blood is digested over time. Inside her body, the meal is broken down into usable components. Proteins become amino acids. Those amino acids support the production of egg yolk proteins. The abdomen expands. The reproductive system activates. A single blood meal can become the foundation for a new batch of eggs. This is the brutal efficiency of the system. Human blood enters a mosquito. The mosquito converts it into reproductive potential. Then she searches for the right place to lay eggs. Water becomes the next stage. The eggs become larvae. The larvae become pupae. The pupae become adults. And some of those adults become females that hunt again. This is why the mosquito bite is so much more than irritation. It is not just a small wound. It is a biological transaction. The mosquito takes from one body to build the next generation of her own. That is the hidden violence of reproduction in nature. Nature often looks beautiful from a distance. But up close, survival is exchange. Energy moves. Nutrients move. Bodies feed other bodies. Life continues by taking from life. The mosquito is one of the clearest examples. She does not need to be large. She does not need claws. She does not need venomous fangs. She does not need strength. She only needs a proboscis, a detection system, a blood meal, and a place for eggs. That is enough. And that simplicity is terrifying because it works. Mosquitoes have become one of the most successful insect groups on Earth because their reproductive system is flexible, efficient, and closely tied to water. They can exploit temporary environments. They can use natural and human-made water sources. They can reproduce quickly under the right conditions. And because different species use different habitats and hosts, mosquitoes are not one single enemy. They are a network, a family of strategies. Some prefer birds, some prefer mammals, some bite humans more often. Some feed during the day, some feed at dusk, some thrive near homes, some belong to wetlands, some connect to forests, some are linked to cities. The word mosquito sounds simple, but behind it is a wide biological category of insects with different behaviors, habitats, and reproductive patterns. That is why the mosquito matrix is not just one thing. It is not only the bite. It is not only the buzzing. It is not only the disease risk. It is the entire hidden system that allows mosquitoes to find opportunity again and again. Water, sugar, mating, blood, eggs, larvae, pupae, adults, hosts, signals, habitats, human environments, all connected. And in the center of this chapter is one key truth. For many female mosquitoes, blood is the bridge between mating and the next generation. Without blood, some species cannot produce eggs successfully. With blood, the reproductive machinery begins to move. This is why the female mosquito has to become a hunter. Not because she wants blood as a lifestyle, but because evolution turned blood into reproductive fuel. That changes how we see the bite. The mosquito is not simply taking food. She is converting your biology into her future. Your blood is not the end goal. The eggs are. The next generation is. The water is. The cycle is. This is the deeper truth behind the phrase, human blood targeted. Humans are not always the only hosts. Mosquitoes can feed on many animals depending on the species. But humans have become important targets for many mosquito populations because we are warm, exposed, predictable, and surrounded by the environments mosquitoes can exploit. We breathe carbon dioxide. We produce body heat. We release odors through skin and sweat. We create water containers. We build cities. We irrigate land. We store water. We leave tiny breeding sites around us without noticing. In other words, humans do not only provide blood, we often provide habitat. This is what makes mosquitoes so deeply connected to human civilization. They do not need to invade from another world. They rise from the conditions around us. A still bucket, a puddle, a shaded container, a drain, a wet tire, a forgotten pool of water. From these quiet places, the system restarts. And once females emerge, the hunting begins again. This is why mosquito control often focuses on water, because the adult bite feels like the problem. But the real population begins before flight. It begins where eggs survive, where larvae feed, where pupae transform, where adults emerge. The bite is visible. The nursery is hidden. Most humans react to mosquitoes only after they feel them, after the itch, after the redness, after the buzzing, after the feeding. But nature does not begin at the moment we notice it. By the time the mosquito lands on skin, a whole life cycle has already succeeded. An egg survived, a larva fed, a pupa transformed, an adult emerged, a female mated, a hunger for reproduction activated, and the host-seeking system turned on. That is why this chapter is called the Blood Reproduction Code, because blood is not isolated. It is written into a sequence, a code of actions, a chain of events. First, water creates the stage. Then the adult emerges. Then mating occurs. Then the female seeks blood. Then the blood meal triggers egg development. Then the female returns to water or a future water site. Then eggs are laid. Then the cycle repeats. This is not random. This is a system. And systems are what nature Declassified is built to reveal. Because if you only see the mosquito as an annoying insect, you miss the architecture behind it. You miss the fact that the mosquito's body is a reproductive machine shaped around small opportunities. You miss the fact that the proboscis, the gut, the ovaries, the wings, the sensory organs, and the egg-laying behavior all connect into one survival design. You miss the fact that the bite is not a mistake. It is the visible point of a hidden biological operation. The female mosquito does not need intelligence like a human. She does not need planning. She carries inherited instructions. A sensory system that directs her toward hosts. A feeding system that extracts blood. A digestive system that processes proteins, a reproductive system that turns nutrients into eggs, and behavior that returns those eggs to the right environment. This is evolution working through biology, not conscious strategy, but functional design, a living program refined by survival. And this is why mosquitoes are so hard to separate from human life. They connect to our bodies, but also to our environments. They exploit the air we breathe, but also the water we leave behind. They follow our heat, but also thrive in the habitats created around us. Every mosquito bite is not only about the insect, it is about the system that produced her, the hidden water, the environmental conditions, the species behavior, the female reproductive state, the host signals, the risk of landing, the reward of blood, the eggs waiting to develop. This is the real matrix, a chain of signals and survival pressures so small that most people never see it until it touches their skin. And even then, they see only the itch, not the code. But once you understand the code, the mosquito becomes something different. Not bigger, not stronger, but more serious. Because the mosquito is not dangerous by size. It is dangerous by connection. It connects water to air, air to skin, skin to blood, blood to eggs, eggs back to water. And sometimes, as later chapters will reveal, it connects one body to another through pathogens. That is why mosquitoes became so powerful in the natural world, not as individuals, but as a network, a reproductive network, a detection network, a disease network, a system built from tiny bodies and massive consequences. But before we reach disease, before we reach the saliva, before we reach the bite itself, we have to understand the hunter. Because once the female mosquito needs blood, she faces the most important problem of her life. How does something so small find something as large as a human in the dark? How does it locate a living body through air? How does it choose where to fly? How does it move from invisible signal to skin contact? That is where the mosquito matrix becomes even more disturbing, because the female mosquito does not hunt blindly. She follows clues. Your breath, your odor, your warmth, your moisture, your skin chemistry, your movement. A layered detection system switches on, and the body you think belongs only to you starts broadcasting information into the night. The female mosquito needs blood, but need alone is not enough. A creature this small still has to solve a nearly impossible problem. How does something weighing almost nothing find a living body in the darkness? How does it detect a human from the air? How does it know where to fly? How does it separate a warm stone from a warm body? How does it turn invisible signals into a landing point on skin? This is where mosquitoes become far more disturbing than most people realize, because the mosquito does not hunt randomly. It does not simply fly around until it accidentally finds you. It uses a layered detection system, a biological tracking network, a sensory matrix built by evolution to read the environment. And the target is you. Your body is constantly broadcasting information, even when you are still, even when you are silent, even when you are sleeping. You are releasing signals into the air: carbon dioxide from your breath, heat from your skin, moisture from your body, odor molecules from sweat and skin oils, chemical traces shaped by bacteria living on your skin, visual contrast from your body and clothing, movement in the dark. To you, these signals are invisible. To a mosquito, they are a map. This is the human detection matrix, a chain of clues that turns a distant living body into a precise feeding site. The first signal is often breath. Every time you exhale, you release carbon dioxide. To humans, carbon dioxide is invisible and ordinary. It leaves the lungs and disappears into the air. But to many mosquitoes, carbon dioxide is one of the most important signs that a living host may be nearby. It does not tell the mosquito everything. It does not say exactly who you are. It does not give a perfect landing point. But it changes the mosquito's behavior. It can activate searching. It can pull attention. It can tell the mosquito that somewhere in the air, a warm-blooded body is breathing. This is the first layer of the matrix, a plume. A chemical trail, a signal moving outward from your body every few seconds. You breathe, and the signal spreads. You breathe again, and the trail refreshes. The air around you becomes marked, not with color, not with sound, but with chemistry. And a mosquito moving through that air can detect changes. It can respond to rising carbon dioxide. It can shift from idle flight into searching behavior. It can begin to move through the air in a way that increases the chance of finding the source. That is the terrifying thing about breath. You do not have to do anything wrong. You do not have to move. You do not have to make noise. You only have to be alive. Your breathing becomes the opening signal, the first announcement, the first clue. But carbon dioxide alone is not enough. Many living things release carbon dioxide: humans, birds, mammals, reptiles, other animals. Even the environment can contain changing levels of CO2, so the mosquito cannot rely on breath alone. The matrix needs more layers. After carbon dioxide activates the search, odor begins to refine the target. Human odor is not one simple smell. It is a complex chemical cloud, a personal atmosphere surrounding the body. It comes from sweat, skin oils, sebum, microbes, breath, clothing, hygiene products, diet, hormones, metabolism, and the living bacterial communities on the skin. Every person carries a unique odor signature, not just in the way humans smell each other, but in the chemical signals released into the air. To a mosquito, this odor signature matters, because odor can help separate a possible host from the right host. This is why some people seem to be mosquito magnets. It is not always imagination. Some bodies produce odor profiles that are more attractive to certain mosquito species. Certain skin chemicals can make one person more noticeable than another. The mosquito is not judging beauty. It is reading chemistry. Some mosquitoes are especially adapted to human environments. Aedes aegypti, for example, is strongly associated with humans in many regions. It is small, dark, marked with pale patterns, and often lives close to human spaces. For a female Aedes mosquito searching for blood, human odor can be a powerful guide, not because she understands humans, but because her sensory system has been shaped to respond to the chemical world humans create. This is the second layer of the matrix, odor. Your smell is not just smell, it is information. It can tell the mosquito that the carbon dioxide plume is not just coming from any source. It is coming from a body with skin, a body with sweat chemistry, a body with microbial traces, a body that may contain blood. This is why the mosquito's antennae are so important. They are not decorative. They are sensory instruments. They detect chemicals in the air. They help the mosquito interpret the invisible world. A mosquito's head may look tiny, but it carries a system built for environmental reading: antennae, palps, sensory receptors, neural pathways, all working together to decide where to fly next. The mosquito does not need a human-like brain. It needs enough sensory processing to turn cues into behavior. And that is exactly what evolution gave it: a small body with a powerful detection system. But the matrix is still not complete. After breath and odor comes heat. A living body gives off warmth. Human skin produces a thermal signal. Again, to us, this seems ordinary. We do not think of ourselves as glowing objects in the environment. But to blood-seeking insects, heat can help confirm that the target is alive. Carbon dioxide says something is breathing. Odor says the source may be a host. Heat says the host is close. Now the search becomes more precise. The mosquito can move from general tracking to local targeting. This is where the operation tightens. At long range, the mosquito may follow odor and CO2. At closer range, heat becomes more important. The warm surface of skin helps guide the final approach. It can help the mosquito decide where to land. It can help separate the living body from the background. It can help confirm that the invisible chemical trail belongs to something warm and biological. This is why the phrase mosquito matrix works so well, because the mosquito is not using one sense. It is stacking senses: breath, odor, heat, moisture, vision, touch, taste. Each cue narrows the search. Each layer removes uncertainty. Each signal brings the mosquito closer. And your body gives them away without permission. The fourth layer is moisture. Human bodies release water vapor. Sweat evaporates. Breath carries humidity. Skin has moisture. Around the body, there is a microclimate, a thin atmospheric zone shaped by temperature, sweat, and breath. Mosquitoes are small. Their bodies are vulnerable to drying out. Humidity matters to them. Moisture is not only a sign of a host, it is part of the environment that affects their survival and landing behavior. In the dark air near a human body, heat and humidity mix. Together, they form another invisible field, a zone around the skin, a boundary where the mosquito can sense that it is getting close. This is why the final approach can feel so accurate. The mosquito is not guessing. It is entering a biological cloud, a cloud made by your living body. Then comes vision. Mosquitoes do not see the world the way humans do. They do not need a detailed image of your face. They do not need to recognize you as a person. They only need enough visual information to move toward contrast, shape, and movement. Dark objects can stand out. Human silhouettes can matter. Movement can draw attention. Visual cues can work with carbon dioxide and odor to guide the flight path. This is important. A mosquito does not fly like a missile using one perfect sensor. It behaves more like a tiny biological drone responding to layers of signals. A burst of carbon dioxide may trigger search. Odor may guide direction. Visual contrast may help orient movement. Heat and humidity may confirm closeness. Skin chemistry may finalize the landing. This is a system of integration. And integration is what makes it effective. One cue can be misleading. Many cues together become powerful. That is the matrix, not one signal, a network of signals, a living algorithm. And in the middle of that algorithm is a female mosquito trying to convert your blood into eggs. Imagine the scene at night. A human is sleeping. The room is dark. The air is still. No obvious movement, no obvious sound. But the body is active. Lungs are breathing. Skin is warming the air. Microbes are producing odor molecules. Sweat chemistry is changing the scent profile. Carbon dioxide moves outward in soft waves. A mosquito enters the room. At first, her flight may seem random. Small loops, tiny corrections, a drifting pattern. But then she crosses the chemical trail. The carbon dioxide changes. Her behavior changes. She begins searching more intensely. She flies through the plume. She loses it. Turns, finds it again. The trail is not a straight road. Air is messy. Currents break it apart. Temperature shifts bend it. Movement disturbs it. But the mosquito does not need perfection. She needs probability. Each signal increases the chance of contact. Closer now, odor becomes stronger. The skin signature becomes clearer. The mosquito receives more chemical information. The body is no longer just a breathing source. It is becoming a host. Then heat appears. The warm surface of skin becomes part of the final map. Humidity rises. Visual contrast gives structure. A dark shape. A surface. A landing zone. She approaches. The buzzing sound may pass near the ear, not because she is trying to frighten you, but because the head is a powerful source of breath, odor, and heat. The face and upper body broadcast signals intensely. To To the mosquito, the air near the head may be rich with information. To you, it becomes that familiar sound in the dark, a tiny vibration, an annoyance, a warning. But by then, the matrix is already working. The mosquito is close. The search has become local. Now she must land. Landing is dangerous. The host may move. A hand may strike. Skin may twitch. Air may shift. The mosquito must choose quickly. She touches the surface. Her legs contact skin. Sensory structures begin reading close-range information. Is this a suitable place? Can the proboscis enter? Is there blood underneath? Is the surface safe enough to feed? The mosquito may walk slightly. Adjust position. Probe. Search for a feeding point. This is the moment most people never see. The bite is not simply a needle stabbing randomly. It is a controlled biological operation, a landing, a surface assessment, a probing sequence, a search beneath the skin. But that belongs more deeply to Chapter 3. For now, what matters is this: the landing was not luck. It was the final stage of tracking. Your body was decoded, layer by layer. And each layer existed before you felt anything. This is why mosquitoes are so successful. They do not need strength. They do not need intelligence like a mammal. They do not need speed like a predator. They only need sensory precision. And sensory precision can defeat size. A lion uses eyes, muscle, and teeth. A hawk uses vision, wings, and talons. A shark uses smell, vibration, and motion. A mosquito uses breath, odor, heat, moisture, and skin. It is a predator of signals, a hunter of biological information. And that makes it one of nature's most efficient small-scale trackers. But there is another disturbing truth. The mosquito's ability to find humans is not universal in the same way across all species. Not every mosquito wants humans equally. Some prefer birds. Some prefer mammals. Some bite amphibians or reptiles. Some live in forests. Some in wetlands. Some around cities. Some feed at night. Some during the day. Some are aggressive around homes. Some rarely interact with humans. This matters because mosquito is not one behavior. It is a category of strategies. Thousands of species exist, and each species has its own ecological logic. The human detection matrix is strongest in mosquitoes that are adapted to human hosts or human environments. Aedes aegypti is one of the most important examples. It often lives near humans. It can breed in artificial containers. It can bite during the day. And it has sensory systems tuned toward host detection. But even within human-biting mosquitoes, the system is not identical. Different species weigh cues differently. Some respond strongly to carbon dioxide. Some are heavily guided by body odor. Some depend more on heat or humidity. Some are influenced by visual contrast. Some are attracted to specific chemical blends from skin. This is why mosquito behavior can feel unpredictable. One person may be bitten more than another. One evening may be worse than another. One location may feel impossible to sit in, while another seems quiet. The matrix changes with species, environment, temperature, humidity, time of day, host availability, and breeding conditions. Nature is not simple. It is not one mosquito and one reason. It is a system of variables. But the main principle remains. Mosquitoes hunt through information, and humans leak information constantly. This is where the story becomes almost uncomfortable, because the signals mosquitoes use are signs of life itself. Breath, heat, sweat, odor, moisture, movement. These are not mistakes. They are the natural outputs of being alive. The mosquito has evolved to read life's broadcast. It does not need permission. It does not need visibility. It only needs access to the signals. And once she has those signals, the hunt begins. This is why repellent science is so important. Repellents are not magical shields. They interfere with the mosquito's ability to interpret or tolerate the signals around the body. Some repellents confuse or overwhelm sensory pathways. Some make the skin less acceptable for landing. Some create an odor environment the mosquito avoids. The goal is not to convince the mosquito morally. The goal is to disrupt the matrix, break the signal, distort the map. Make the host harder to locate, approach, or accept, because the mosquito does not attack through emotion, it attacks through detection, and detection can be interrupted. But the natural system remains impressive. A female mosquito in the dark can solve a problem that would challenge machines, find the warm breathing object, move through unstable air, interpret chemical gradients, combine smell with vision, confirm heat, find skin, land, probe, feed, escape, then convert the blood into eggs. This is not intelligence in the human sense. It is biological computation. Behavior shaped by sensory input. A living algorithm refined through countless generations. The mosquito that found hosts more effectively had more reproductive success. The mosquito that followed the right cues survived long enough to lay eggs. The mosquito that wasted energy on false targets lost advantage. Over time, selection shaped the system. Not perfectly, not consciously, but effectively. This is evolution writing instructions into nerves, receptors, wings, and behavior. The mosquito does not think carbon dioxide means human. It responds. The mosquito does not think heat confirms blood. It reacts. The mosquito does not think this odor profile is attractive. Its nervous system is built to move toward it. That is how nature creates a matrix without a mind, a network of automatic decisions, each one small, each one chemical, each one linked to survival. And the result is something humans experience as being hunted. You sit outside at dusk, you breathe, your skin warms the air, your body releases odor, your clothing creates contrast, your sweat changes the chemical field, and from somewhere nearby, a female mosquito begins to approach. You may not see her. You may not hear her at first, but the signals are already moving. Your body has already spoken. The matrix has already received the message. This is the deeper horror of mosquitoes. They do not need to see you clearly to know you are there. They can build a picture from invisible evidence. They can turn chemistry into direction, heat into confirmation, moisture into proximity, odor into identity, skin into opportunity. And that is why the bite feels unfair. Because by the time you notice her, she has already completed most of the hunt. You only feel the final stage. The landing, the probing, the injection of saliva, the blood meal, the itch that comes later. But the real hunt happened in the air. The real hunt was invisible, a path built from breath and scent, a chemical investigation, a sensory pursuit. This is what separates mosquitoes from simple annoyance. They are not merely pests, they are signal hunters. And for humans, the most unsettling part is that we cannot stop broadcasting the signals they use. We can reduce exposure, we can remove standing water, we can use barriers, we can use repellents, we can change clothing, we can use screens. But we cannot stop being warm. We cannot stop breathing. We cannot stop having skin chemistry. We cannot stop being alive. The mosquito's target is life itself, and human life is loud in the sensory world. But there is still one more layer in the matrix. After the mosquito detects you, after she lands, after the proboscis touches skin, the operation becomes physical. Now the mosquito must enter the body without being noticed too quickly. She must pierce the skin, navigate tissue, find blood, prevent clotting. Keep the flow open, and escape before the host reacts. That process is not simple. It is one of the most precise feeding operations in the insect world, because the mosquito bite is not just a needle. It is a multi-part biological tool, a hidden surgical system. And the saliva she injects does more than most people realize. It helps the feeding process. It changes the local environment. It triggers the immune response that later becomes itching. And in some cases, it can carry pathogens from one host to another. So the matrix does not end when the mosquito finds you. Finding you is only phase one. The next phase happens beneath the skin, a microscopic operation where saliva, blood, immune reaction, and disease risk all meet. By the time you feel a mosquito bite, the hunt is almost over. The breath has already been followed. The odor has already been decoded. The heat has already confirmed the target. The skin has already been reached. The mosquito has already landed. And now the operation moves from the air to the body. This is the part humans experience as a small irritation, a tiny red bump, a sudden itch, a mark on the skin that feels almost too small to matter. But under the surface, the mosquito bite is not simple. It is not just a needle entering skin. It is not just a quick sip of blood. It is a biological operation. A feeding system built from specialized mouth parts, chemical saliva, blood flow manipulation, immune reaction, and sometimes disease transmission. This is where the mosquito stops being only a flying tracker and becomes something even more disturbing. A microscopic intruder that does not only find the body, but briefly changes the local rules inside it. That is why this chapter is called The Bite That Hijacks the Body. Because the mosquito does not simply take blood. It has to get past the body's defenses. The moment skin is pierced, the human body is designed to respond. Blood vessels can constrict. Platelets begin to gather. Clotting systems activate. Immune cells prepare for threat. Pain and inflammation can signal damage. The body does not want blood to flow freely out of a wound. It is built to seal openings, to stop bleeding, to defend tissue, to recognize invasion. So the mosquito faces a problem. She needs blood to flow, but your body wants blood to stop. She needs time to feed, but your body wants to react. She needs access without being killed. But even the smallest disturbance can make the host move. So evolution built the mosquito a toolkit. Not claws, not teeth, not strength. A proboscis. At first glance, the mosquito's proboscis looks like one thin needle. That is the cover story. The real structure is far more complex. The proboscis is a multi-part feeding system, a flexible external sheath, and inside it, a bundle of tiny mouthparts called stylets. These parts work together like a miniature biological instrument, not one needle, a hidden toolkit. The outer part, called the labium, does not fully enter the skin. It bends back as the internal stylets move forward. This is one of the strangest parts of the bite. When a mosquito feeds, the structure you see on the outside folds and supports the operation, while the real piercing parts go beneath the surface. Inside are specialized components. Some help pierce, some help anchor, some help search. One channel helps draw blood. Another pathway delivers saliva. The mosquito's mouth is not crude. It is engineered by evolution for one specific mission: enter tissue, find blood, keep it flowing, take the meal, and escape. The mosquito lands quietly. Her legs touch skin. She senses the surface. She adjusts position. The body beneath her is enormous compared to her. Every second carries risk. A twitch, a slap, a gust of air, a movement of clothing. Any of it can end the mission. So the bite must be efficient. She lowers the proboscis. The labium touches the skin. The inner stylets begin to enter. They do not simply stab straight down like a metal needle. They move through tissue with delicate, repeated motions. The mosquito is not always hitting a blood vessel immediately. She may probe, search, adjust, explore beneath the surface. The skin is not an empty bag of blood. It is layers, cells, fibers, nerves, tiny vessels, defensive systems. The mosquito must navigate this microscopic landscape. And she does it with a feeding structure so refined that humans barely feel the entry at first. This is why the bite often becomes noticeable later, not always instantly. The major reaction comes after the saliva and immune response begin to matter. Before the itch, before the swelling, before the red bump, the mosquito is operating. The stylets enter. The search begins. Some mouthparts help hold and stabilize. Some cut or pierce. The feeding tube searches for blood. The saliva delivery system prepares the chemical phase. This is where the mosquito bite becomes more than mechanical. Because piercing the skin is only half the problem. The larger problem is blood itself. Blood is designed to clot. That is one of the reasons humans survive injury. When a vessel is damaged, blood does not simply keep flowing forever. Platelets gather. Chemical cascades begin. Clots form. The opening seals. From the body's point of view, this is protection. From the mosquito's point of view, this is failure. If the blood clots too quickly, the meal becomes harder. If vessels constrict, the flow decreases. If immune reaction rises too fast, the host may notice. If pain signals activate strongly, the mosquito may be killed before feeding. So the mosquito injects saliva. This saliva is not random moisture. It is chemically active. It contains molecules that help the mosquito feed. Some components interfere with blood clotting. Some affect platelet activity. Some influence blood vessel behavior. Some interact with the immune system. Together, they help create a temporary feeding zone, a tiny local environment where blood remains accessible long enough for the mosquito to take what she needs. This is the hijack. For a brief moment, the mosquito is not just drinking blood. She is altering the conditions around the bite. The body tries to defend. The mosquito's saliva pushes back. The body tries to seal. The saliva delays. The body detects intrusion. The saliva changes the local response. The mosquito does not overpower the human body. She manipulates a tiny part of it, a small point on the skin, a microscopic battlefield. And in that battlefield, chemistry matters more than strength. This is one of nature's most important patterns. Small organisms often survive not by being powerful in size, but by using precise biological tools. A mosquito cannot fight a human, but she can briefly interfere with a human's blood and immune response at the scale of a pinprick. That is enough. Once the saliva is delivered, the feeding can begin. The labrum acts as the main blood-feeding channel. Blood is drawn upward through the mouthparts. The abdomen begins to fill. The female mosquito takes in the nutrient-rich meal that will help support egg production. And while she feeds, the danger remains. She is attached to a giant living host. Every movement from that host is a threat. So feeding must be balanced. Long enough to take blood, short enough to survive, quiet enough to escape, efficient enough to produce eggs. The mosquito is not drinking for pleasure. She is completing a reproductive mission. Every second of feeding is tied to the next generation. The blood will be digested, proteins will be broken down, nutrients will be used. Egg development will move forward. And if she survives, she will leave the host and search for a place connected to water. The same cycle from chapter 1 begins again. But for the host, the story continues after the mosquito leaves. Because the itch does not come from the mosquito stealing blood alone. The itch comes largely from the body responding to mosquito saliva. This is another misunderstanding. Many people think the mosquito bite itches because the skin was pierced, but a simple tiny puncture is not the full reason. The real reaction comes from the immune system recognizing foreign saliva proteins. The body detects them. Immune signals activate. Histamine and other inflammatory processes contribute to swelling, redness, and itching. That small bump is not the mosquito directly building a bump. It is your body reacting. The mosquito injects saliva to help herself feed. Your immune system responds to that saliva, and the battle continues after the mosquito is gone. This is why the bite may itch for hours or days. The mosquito is no longer there, but the biological message remains. Your immune system is still responding. The local tissue is still inflamed. The skin is still irritated. The body is still remembering the intrusion. For some people, the reaction is mild. A small red bump, a little itching, a short-lived irritation. For others, the response is stronger. Larger swelling, more redness, more intense itching. Different people react differently because immune systems differ. Past exposure matters. Sensitivity matters. Age can matter. The mosquito species can matter. Even the location of the bite can change how noticeable it feels. This is why two people can sit in the same place, receive bites, and react in completely different ways. One barely notices. The other develops large, itchy marks. The mosquito performed a similar operation. But the host response was not the same. Again, the matrix is not one simple event. It is mosquito biology plus human biology. The bite is an interaction. The mosquito brings mouth parts and saliva. The human body brings blood, clotting, nerves, skin, immune defense, and inflammation. The visible mark is the result of both. That is what makes the mosquito bite so fascinating. It is not just something done to the body. It is something that happens between two systems. The mosquito system wants access. The host system wants defense. The bite is where those systems collide. And this collision happens at an extremely small scale. A few millimeters of skin, a tiny feeding channel, a chemical exchange, a small wound. But the consequences can be much larger. because mosquito saliva is not only important for feeding, it can also become the gateway for pathogens. This is the darkest part of the mosquito story. Not every mosquito carries disease. Most mosquito bites do not transmit serious illness, and mosquitoes themselves are not born carrying every pathogen. They become dangerous disease vectors when they acquire pathogens from one host and later transmit them to another. But when this does happen, the bite becomes more than a feeding event. It becomes a transfer point, a biological bridge. A mosquito feeds on an infected host. A pathogen enters the mosquito. If the pathogen can survive and develop or reach the right tissues inside the mosquito, it may later be transmitted during another bite. The mosquito then becomes part of a disease network, not because it wants to spread disease, not because it is evil, but because its feeding behavior creates movement between bodies. Blood connects hosts, saliva connects the mosquito to the bite site, and pathogens exploit that connection. This is why mosquitoes are among the most medically important insects on Earth. Their danger is not only their bite. Their danger is their ability to connect one bloodstream to another through repeated feeding. The mosquito is small, but the network it creates can be enormous. Villages, cities, wetlands, tropical regions, urban containers, human migration, climate, water storage, animal hosts, all connected through the behavior of tiny flying females seeking blood. This is where the mosquito becomes historically powerful, not by itself, but as a vector, a carrier, a bridge, a moving needle of biology. But we must be clear, the mosquito bite itself is not automatically a disease event. A mosquito must be the right species. It must feed on the right infected host. The pathogen must survive inside the mosquito. It must reach the right place inside the mosquito's body. And then the mosquito must bite again. Only then can transmission happen. This is why mosquito-borne disease is a system, not a simple bite. Species matters. Pathogen matters. Environment matters. Human behavior matters. Temperature matters. Water matters. Public health matters. But the bite remains the doorway, the physical moment where a mosquito's biology can intersect with human disease. And that doorway exists because of the feeding system. The proboscis enters. Saliva flows. Blood is taken. And if a pathogen is present in the right way, the same system that helps the mosquito feed can help move disease. This is why the saliva is so important. It is not just a feeding fluid. It is part of the biological interface between mosquito and host, a chemical negotiation, a manipulation of local tissue, a trigger for immune response, and sometimes a route through which pathogens enter the skin. This is the body hijack in its most serious form. The mosquito does not simply create a hole. It changes the local environment. It keeps blood accessible. It avoids immediate clotting. It influences immune response. It uses saliva to make feeding possible. And in certain cases, that same saliva-assisted entry can become the beginning of infection. This is why a mosquito bite feels so small, but matters so much. The scale is tiny. The mechanism is precise. The network is global. A small insect lands on skin. A microscopic mouthpart enters. A little saliva is injected. A little blood is taken. A small bump appears. But behind that moment is evolution, reproduction, sensory tracking, blood chemistry, immune reaction, and disease ecology. The mosquito bite is not a random irritation. It is a system touching the body. Now look at the proboscis again. What seemed like a single needle is actually a hidden instrument. The labium guides. The stylets pierce, the mosquito probes, the saliva enters, the blood flows, the abdomen fills, the host reacts, the mosquito escapes. Every part of the action has purpose, and every purpose connects to survival. The female mosquito cannot ask the host for blood. She cannot overpower it. She cannot wait for blood to appear naturally. She must create access. So her body became access. Her mouthparts became tools. Her saliva became chemical strategy. Her senses became a tracking system. Her life cycle became tied to water and hosts. And her reproductive future became connected to the blood of other animals. This is why mosquitoes feel so unavoidable. They are not strong, but they are specialized. They do not dominate by force. They exploit openings, a little standing water, a breath trail in the air, a warm sleeping body, a thin area of exposed skin, a moment without movement, a small chemical window before the immune reaction becomes too strong. Nature often rewards organisms that use small opportunities extremely well. Mosquitoes are masters of small opportunity. A teaspoon of water, a few seconds on skin, a tiny puncture, a droplet of blood, a batch of eggs. That is the scale they operate on. And yet the consequences can shape ecosystems and human history. This is what makes them so different from larger predators. A wolf must chase, a crocodile must ambush, a hawk must strike, a mosquito must enter. Its weapon is not jaws, it is access. And once it accesses the skin, the body becomes part of its reproductive system. Your blood is converted into eggs. Your immune system creates the itch. Your skin becomes the battlefield. And if disease is involved, your body may become part of a transmission chain. This is the terrifying elegance of mosquitoes. They take almost nothing from one bite, but they use that small act with enormous efficiency. They do not need to drain a host. They only need enough blood to continue the cycle. And because they are small, because they are fast, because they can breed in overlooked water, because they can track invisible signals, and because their bite is chemically supported, they have become one of the most successful blood-feeding systems on Earth. But there is another layer. The mosquito's saliva does not affect every host in exactly the same way. Some immune systems react strongly. Some react weakly. Repeated exposure can change sensitivity. Children may react differently from adults. People entering a new mosquito environment may notice stronger reactions. Some individuals can experience unusually large local swelling. This shows that the bite is not a simple mechanical injury. It is a biological conversation. The mosquito introduces saliva. The body interprets it. The immune system responds based on its own history and sensitivity. This is why the same mosquito species can feel different to different people. The bite mark is personal, not because the mosquito chose emotionally, but because your immune system writes part of the ending. And this is where the mosquito becomes almost invisible as an actor. She leaves. She flies away. She searches for shelter. She begins digestion. Inside her abdomen, the blood meal is processed. Inside the host, the immune system continues reacting. Two bodies move on from the same event, each changed in different ways. For the mosquito, the bite may become eggs. For the human, the bite becomes itch. For a pathogen, if present, the bite may become opportunity. This three-way interaction is what makes mosquitoes so scientifically important. Mosquito, host, pathogen. Each one has its own biology. Each one influences the outcome. And the bite is where they meet. This is why controlling mosquitoes is not just about killing an annoying insect. It is about interrupting a system. Remove standing water, and you interrupt reproduction. Use screens and nets, and you interrupt contact. Wear protective clothing, and you reduce exposed landing sites. Use repellents, and you disrupt detection and landing. Control larvae, and you stop adults before they fly. Treat disease, and you reduce pathogen reservoirs. Public health works by breaking links in the chain. Because the mosquito matrix is made of links. Water to larva, larva to adult, female to host, host to blood, blood to eggs, saliva to immune response, infected host to mosquito, mosquito to next host. Break the link and the system weakens. But if the links remain intact, the matrix continues. This is why mosquitoes have followed humans so closely. Our bodies provide signals. Our environments provide breeding sites. Our movement spreads opportunity. Our cities create containers. Our climate zones shape survival. Our behavior determines exposure. The mosquito does not need to understand civilization. It only needs to exploit the conditions civilization creates. And once it reaches the body, the bite completes the contact. A contact so small that many people ignore it, until they understand what is happening beneath the skin. The proboscis is not a straw. It is a multi-part instrument. The saliva is not simple fluid. It is chemical strategy. The itch is not the bite itself. It is immune reaction. The disease risk is not every bite. It is a network event. And the blood meal is not just feeding. It is reproduction. That is the hidden reality of Chapter 3. The mosquito does not only hunt human blood. It enters the body's defensive world and bends a tiny part of that world in its favor. It delays clotting. It supports blood flow. It triggers immune response. It takes what it needs. Then it leaves behind a biological signature, a bump, an itch, a memory in the skin, and sometimes the beginning of something far more dangerous. So the next time you see a mosquito bite, do not see only a red mark. See the operation, the landing, the folded labium, the hidden stylets, the probing beneath the skin, the saliva entering tissue, the blood being drawn, the immune system reacting, the female mosquito leaving with reproductive fuel. That red bump is not just irritation. It is evidence. Evidence that a tiny biological machine located you, entered you, altered the local chemistry of your body, and escaped with part of your blood. And yet, this is not the final layer of the mosquito story, because the bite explains the body hijack. But it does not fully explain why mosquitoes became one of the most powerful biological forces on Earth. To understand that, we have to zoom out, from skin to cities, from one bite to entire populations, from one insect to global disease networks, from standing water to human history. Because mosquitoes are not only individual blood hunters, they are part of one of the deadliest networks nature ever produced. By now, the mosquito is no longer just a tiny insect. It is no longer just an annoying sound near your ear. It is no longer just a red bump on the skin. It is a reproductive system, a tracking system, a feeding system, a body hijacking system. But the final truth is even bigger, because mosquitoes are not powerful only as individuals. One mosquito is fragile. One mosquito can be crushed by a hand. One mosquito can disappear in a gust of wind. One mosquito can die before it ever takes a blood meal. But mosquitoes do not matter because of one body. They matter because of the network, the water, the eggs, the larvae, the adults, the hosts, the blood meals, the pathogens, the climate, the cities, the human environments, the repeated contact between bodies. This is what makes mosquitoes one of the most powerful biological forces on Earth. Not strength, not size, not intelligence, connection. The mosquito connects systems that should normally stay separate. Water to air, air to skin, skin to blood, blood to eggs, host to host, village to village, city to city, and sometimes one infected body to another. That is why this chapter is called The Deadliest Network on Earth, because the mosquito is not just a blood hunter. It is a moving link, a tiny flying bridge between biology, environment, and disease. Most people experience mosquitoes as individuals. One bite, one itch, one insect flying away. But nature does not operate only through individuals. Nature operates through systems. And mosquitoes are a system that repeats. Again, and again, and again. A female finds blood. She develops eggs. She lays them near or on water. Larvae hatch. Pupae transform. Adults emerge. Some females mate. Some females seek blood. And the cycle repeats. Every successful bite can lead to another generation. Every overlooked water source can become a launch site. Every warm season can expand the network. Every human environment can create new opportunity. A bucket, a gutter, a tire, a drain, a pot, a puddle, a water tank, a shaded container. To humans, these are small details. To mosquitoes, they are infrastructure. This is the hidden architecture of the mosquito world. Not forests alone, not swamps alone, not tropical wetlands alone. Human spaces themselves can become mosquito landscapes. We build homes. We store water. We create shade. We leave containers. We change drainage. We irrigate land. We travel. We urbanize. And without noticing, we create edges where mosquitoes can survive. This is what makes them so difficult to control. They do not need a kingdom. They need a pocket of water. They do not need a battlefield. They need a breeding site. They do not need to dominate the visible world. They only need to operate in the places humans ignore. That is the real mosquito matrix. The adult mosquito is the visible part. But the network begins before flight. It begins in water. A female mosquito lays eggs. The eggs survive. Larvae hatch and feed. Pupae transform. Adults emerge from the surface. The air receives them. And once the females seek blood, the network moves from water to skin. This is why mosquito control often starts with standing water, because by the time mosquitoes are flying around you, The hidden nursery has already succeeded. The adult is the result. The water is the source. Most humans fight mosquitoes at the final stage, after they bite, after they buzz, after they appear. But the mosquito network is built earlier, quietly, in still water, in the places nobody checks. This is why a tiny container can matter. It may not look like a threat. It may not look alive. It may not seem connected to disease. But if mosquitoes can use it, it becomes part of the system. A small pool becomes a nursery. A nursery becomes adults. Adults become blood seekers. Blood seekers become egg producers. Egg producers return the system back to water. That circular design is one of the reasons mosquitoes have survived so successfully. They are not locked into one environment. Different species use different places. Some use marshes, some use floodwater, some use tree holes, some use containers, some live close to humans, some bite birds, some bite mammals. Some bite at night, some bite during the day, some enter homes, some remain outdoors, some are nuisance mosquitoes, some are disease vectors. This is important. Not every mosquito spreads disease. Not every mosquito species prefers humans. Not every bite is dangerous. But the species that do connect with humans and pathogens can become enormously important. Because once a mosquito can feed on blood, and once a pathogen can survive inside that mosquito, the bite becomes more than feeding. It becomes transmission. A disease vector is not dangerous because it creates the pathogen from nothing. It is dangerous because it moves the pathogen. The mosquito becomes infected when it feeds on an infected host. Then, if the pathogen can survive and develop inside the mosquito's body, the mosquito may carry it forward. Later, during another bite, the pathogen can enter a new host. The mosquito does not know this is happening. It does not plan disease. It does not choose victims. It is not evil. It is simply feeding. But pathogens exploit that feeding behavior. They use the mosquito as transport. They turn a reproductive blood meal into a disease route. This is the dark genius of mosquito-borne disease. The mosquito wants blood for reproduction. The pathogen wants movement between hosts. The host becomes the meeting point, and the bite becomes the doorway. That is why mosquitoes have changed history, not because they are individually terrifying, but because they are capable of linking bodies across time and space. A mosquito feeds here. A pathogen enters. The mosquito survives. It feeds again somewhere else. And suddenly, two bodies are connected by something neither of them can see. This invisible connection is what makes mosquito-borne disease so powerful. Malaria, dengue, yellow fever, Zika, chikungunya, West Nile virus, Japanese encephalitis. These diseases are not all carried by the same mosquito. They do not all behave the same way. They do not all affect the same regions. They are not one single story, but they reveal the same principle. Mosquitoes can become bridges for pathogens, and when that bridge is repeated millions of times, the consequences become global. The mosquito's danger is not its bite alone. It is the network behind the bite. Think about malaria. The parasite does not simply move through air. It needs the right mosquito vector. It needs Anopheles mosquitoes. It needs blood meals. It needs the parasite's life cycle to continue inside both human and mosquito. It needs environmental conditions that allow mosquitoes to survive. It needs enough contact between mosquitoes and humans. Remove one part of the chain, and transmission weakens. But when all parts align, the result can be devastating. Now think about dengue. Dengue is linked strongly with Aedes mosquitoes, especially in human environments. These mosquitoes can exploit containers. They can live close to people. They can bite during the day. They can connect dense human populations through repeated feeding. This makes dengue not just a mosquito problem, but an urban system problem. Water storage, waste management, housing, temperature, rainfall, population density, travel, public health response. All of these things can influence the network. The mosquito is the visible carrier, but the outbreak is built from many layers. This is why the deadliest network on Earth is not only biological, it is ecological, it is social, it is environmental, It is human-made. Mosquitoes do not operate outside civilization. They operate through the conditions civilization creates. A city can become a mosquito environment. A water container can become a nursery. A crowded neighborhood can become a host field. A rainy season can expand breeding sites. A heat wave can change mosquito activity. Travel can move pathogens. Poor drainage can support larvae. Weak public health systems can allow outbreaks to grow. And all of it can begin with something as small as a bite. This is what makes mosquitoes so different from dramatic predators. A lion kills openly. A shark attacks visibly. A snake strikes with fear. A crocodile pulls prey into water. But mosquitoes operate almost invisibly. Their power is not cinematic in the usual way. It is quiet, distributed, repetitive. 1,000 small contacts, 1,000,000 small bites, a network of water and blood. The mosquito does not need one dramatic moment. It only needs the system to keep running. That is why humans have always struggled with mosquitoes. We notice the adult. But the real system is everywhere, in the environment, in the climate, in the water, in the host population, in public health, in housing, in sanitation, in behavior, in biology. The mosquito is the connection point between all of these things. This is also why eliminating mosquitoes completely is not simple. Mosquitoes are many species. They occupy many habitats. They reproduce quickly. They adapt to different environments. Some can use human-made containers. Some are active indoors. Some are active outdoors. Some resist insecticides over time. Some shift behavior. Some survive in places humans cannot easily monitor. The mosquito matrix is flexible, and flexibility is one of evolution's most powerful weapons. But we must also understand something carefully. Mosquitoes are not useless in nature. They are part of ecosystems. Mosquito larvae can be food for aquatic organisms. Adult mosquitoes can be food for bats, birds, spiders, dragonflies, fish, and other predators. Some mosquitoes visit flowers and feed on nectar. They are woven into food webs. But their ecological role does not erase their medical importance. Nature can be both interconnected and dangerous. A creature can have a place in the ecosystem and still be one of the most serious threats to human health. That is the uncomfortable truth. Nature is not designed around human safety. It is built from survival interactions. Mosquitoes survive by using signals, water, and blood. Pathogens survive by using hosts and vectors. Humans survive by understanding and interrupting the chain. This is why public health is really system warfare. Not warfare against one insect only. Warfare against the network. Remove standing water. Block entry with screens. Use mosquito nets. Apply repellents. Control larvae. Monitor outbreaks. Improve sanitation. Strengthen healthcare. Track disease. Educate communities. Reduce contact. Every action is an attempt to break one link. Because mosquitoes succeed through links. The network is powerful, but it is not invincible. If water is removed, larvae cannot develop. If skin is protected, feeding becomes harder. If homes are screened, contact is reduced. If nets are used, night-biting mosquitoes lose access. If communities respond early, outbreaks can be slowed. If surveillance works, patterns can be detected before they explode. This is the human response to the mosquito matrix, not fear alone, understanding. Because once you understand the system, you can see where to attack it. The bite is only one point. The real target is the chain. But the mosquito's success shows us something deeper about nature. Power does not always come from size. Sometimes power comes from repetition. Sometimes power comes from numbers. Sometimes power comes from timing. Sometimes power comes from connection. A mosquito is tiny, but a population of mosquitoes can reshape human behavior. They can determine whether people sleep under nets, whether families go outside at dusk, whether governments launch control programs, whether hospitals prepare for outbreaks, whether entire regions carry the burden of disease. That is not the power of one insect. That is the power of a network. And the network begins with biology. A female needs blood. She finds a host. She injects saliva. She takes a meal. She develops eggs. She returns to water. The cycle repeats. If pathogens are present, they can move through that cycle. If human environments support breeding, populations rise. If climate supports survival, the season expands. If travel moves infection, new regions become vulnerable. If public health weakens, outbreaks grow. Everything is connected. That is the final lesson of mosquitoes. They are not dangerous because they are monsters. They are dangerous because they are connected to everything. Water, weather, blood, disease, cities, human behavior, evolution, reproduction. The mosquito is a small body carrying a massive relationship with the world. And this is why the sound near your ear at night feels so personal. It is personal, but it is also part of something much larger. That single mosquito may have emerged from water nearby. She may have followed your breath. She may have decoded your odor. She may have landed because your heat confirmed the target. She may have injected saliva to keep your blood flowing. She may leave with nutrients for eggs. And if the wrong pathogen is part of the chain, that bite may become more than irritation. It may become a transmission event. This is the frightening scale difference. The bite is tiny. The consequence can be enormous. The insect is small. The network is global. The moment is brief. The system is ancient. For millions of years, mosquitoes have survived by exploiting the basic outputs of living bodies: breath, heat, odor, blood, water. These are not rare signals. They are everywhere life exists. And because life broadcasts them constantly, mosquitoes have never needed to be strong. They only needed to become sensitive. Sensitive to carbon dioxide, sensitive to odor, sensitive to heat, sensitive to moisture, sensitive to opportunity. That sensitivity turned them into one of nature's most successful blood-seeking systems. And when pathogens entered that system, mosquitoes became something even larger. Not just insects, vectors, connectors, moving pieces in the global biology of disease. This is why the mosquito matrix matters. It reveals that nature's most dangerous systems are not always the ones we can see clearly. Sometimes the greatest power is hidden in small, repeated actions. A breath followed, a landing completed, a mouth part inserted, a saliva molecule delivered, a blood meal taken, an egg batch produced, a pathogen transferred, a population expanded, a disease spread. This is how the mosquito changes the world, not through one dramatic attack, but through countless invisible links. And once you see that, the mosquito can never again be seen as just an annoying bug. It is a system, a blood-seeking algorithm written by evolution, a flying connection between water and skin, a reproductive machine guided by invisible signals, a tiny organism that became one of the most important disease networks on Earth. The real reason mosquitoes hunt human blood is not simple hunger. It is reproduction. But the consequences of that hunt reach far beyond reproduction, because blood connects bodies. And wherever bodies are connected, biology can move. That is the final hidden truth. The mosquito does not only take, it links. It links your breath to its flight, your heat to its landing, your skin to its saliva, your blood to its eggs, your environment to its population, and sometimes one human life to another through disease. That is why mosquitoes changed history. That is why they remain one of the most studied insects on Earth. And that is why the mosquito matrix is not a metaphor. It is a real biological network, built from water, guided by signals, powered by blood, and capable of shaping life on a planetary scale. So the next time you hear that high-pitched sound in the dark, do not think only of an insect. Think of the system behind it, the water it came from, the signals it followed, the body it targeted, the saliva it carries, the eggs it may produce, and the invisible network it belongs to. Because nature's most dangerous systems do not always roar. Sometimes they buzz. If you found this documentary insightful, make sure to subscribe to Nature Declassified and turn on the bell icon, because in every episode, we uncover the hidden systems behind nature. And if you enjoyed this story, share it with someone who still thinks nature is simple.